Welcome back, Chris.
Hi, Ruth. Nice to be with you.
So, tell us about your recital that's going on tonight.
Yep, it should be just called /list because all the pieces on it are works that Franz Liszt has arranged for solo piano. I'm going to start, the first half will be comprised of his entire transcription of Berlioz's Symphonie Fantastique, and the second half will start with song arrangements by Schumann and Schubert, a mashup of an arrangement of the Prelude and Liebestod from Wagner's Tristan and Isolde, Liszt's arrangement coupled with Moszkowski's arrangement of the Prelude, and my work trying to get the vocal part put back in where they leave it out at the end. And then the Don Juan Fantasy, which is basically Liszt's reworking of
the Strauss?
Of Mozart's Don Giovanni.
Oh, wow, okay.
Yeah.
I did not know Liszt arranged all that. So he was a contemporary with all those guys then?
He did so much for his colleagues. He was an extraordinary proselytizer for other people's music, and being in the position of concertizing virtuoso, he had a perfect platform for which to play other people's works. He was at the premiere of Symphonie Fantastique, and was really quite taken with it, and so did the whole piece, and actually in concert, mostly the second and the fourth movement would show up in his concert programs, but he made quite a piece of the symphony. There are some places where he's noted that there are more things going on in the orchestra than he had time to incorporate, and so I've done a fair amount of rearranging of that material. Also things in the fourth movement where the timpani part is noted that, yeah, there are triplets in the timpani part, but I don't know what to do with them, so I've reincorporated that. And then, of course, the chimes in the Dies Irae part of the finale they're just notated as octaves in Liszt's arrangement, so I've sort of put a cloud pianissimo of sort of random fourths so that we hear more of the sort of overtone effect of the chimes. Seems like a good idea.
You could just do some nice like open intervals, like fourths and fifths.
Exactly.
You know, I remember learning that Liszt was in the same musicological camp as Berlioz and Wagner and Strauss, sort of, right? All the high romantics. But that's really interesting that he would choose to arrange Symphonie Fantastique for piano, because Berlioz, we know him as such a master of orchestration, of exploiting all those different timbres and musical voices.
Absolutely.
I mean, how do you think the piano transcription compares to the original?
I prefer it, actually, because here's the thing: Liszt was really part of the high romantic tradition, but you have to remember that for all of Berlioz's flashy orchestration, the Symphonie Fantastique was premiered literally 2 years after the death of Beethoven, and so you listen to the note choices are, strictly speaking, you know, sort of whacked out Beethovenian sort of note choices. There are some odd phrase lengths, and there are also some hallucinatory, sort of lengthy spinning of wheels in terms of the development, and of course it becomes, you know, this. I mean, it becomes the real precursor of the whole Wagnerian leitmotif thing, where you have the idée fixe, you have the theme of Berlioz's, you know, ideal beloved appearing in all 5 movements, really unprecedented. Yeah, and so. And then, of course, you know, you have it as being real program music of a sort that also was really not something that had been done before in a very sort of long range sort of thing. He was, I mean, so there's lots of programmatic information. Berlioz was very keen on having everybody at the show had to have a program, and it really sort of goes briefly like he finds this woman who is the ideal of, you know, the woman of his dreams.
Harriet Smith.
Harriet Smith,
the actress?
The Irish actress, Harriet Smithson. So he saw her playing Ophelia in Hamlet and was completely smitten. And
didn't speak English.
Well, there's that. And actually, you know, he's very cagey about saying, you know, how much of this is autobiographical. He refers to the artist, you know, episode in an artist's life. It was actually many years later that Harriet Smithson was told that she was the object of his desire, and They actually were married disastrously, briefly.
I did not catch that.
That's true.
Wow. Little sad ending.
So,
there.
well, it just goes to show that fantasy is always better than reality.
Well, there's a bit of foreshadowing if you think about it. There's some ominous foreshadowing in the piece when the artist, the hallucinator, gets his head chopped off, and then he goes to this hellish place after that.
Yes, there's a lot of
pretty ironic.
Lots of opium hallucinations. I think that are told about in the fourth movement, but I think happen quite a lot through the piece. But yeah, there's a lot of he's actually, you can hear his head chopped off and rolling into the basket at the end of the fourth movement. But I also, the reason I prefer the piano version is that there's this real high drama, not only in terms of the storyline, but in terms of the dynamics, in terms of the enormous shifts in dynamics that I think this is probably what Liszt found so attractive. When you think of the B minor sonata of Liszt, that's full of leitmotifs and really is sort of the hero as virtuoso or virtuoso as hero. It's kind of more integral with the piece and with the drama of the piece to have one person playing it instead of the rather undignified flailings of 88 people in an orchestra. Just my opinion.
Oh, because you think that Liszt so strongly identified with the protagonist in the story that it was his story.
I think there's that, and I think there's more concentration in having these musical gestures achieved by one person instead of a whole gaggle of folks.
Interesting, but that was, being an orchestra musician, I have to say that was part of Berlioz's genius to integrate all the voice in the orchestra. Anyway, but that's sort of rambling. But that's so interesting that you said it was premiered just 2 years after Beethoven croaked, because I definitely remember learning about Liszt as not just a successor to Beethoven, but as a response to Beethoven's mastery of the symphony. Everyone was like, what do we do now? There is no further epicness to be done, so they had to come up with this whole new approach.
Berlioz really, was quite revolutionary in his use of the orchestra, in his use of phrasing, in his use of dramatic devices, in his integration of drama, or in particular literature, into music. He was really quite an extraordinary person, and Liszt responded to that in kind. And this is his most enormous, sort of undertaking in terms of transcription and arrangement.
All right, well, looking forward to that. Hopefully we'll see y'all at Chris's recital tonight, 7:30 in the recital hall. So, but moving on, obviously you have a very multifaceted career. You're a busy guy. Can you tell us a bit about what an artist in residence does and about this partnership we have with NPR?
Well, this week of the residency was really revolving around my solo recitals, so I was doing a fair number of private lessons with kids, and that was really quite nice. Last time I was here, we were on the road together. LSU Symphony Orchestra went to Mesquite, Texas, near the Dallas home of Dr. James M. Seiler, the donor who provided the Distinguished Visiting Artist residency, and that was a real good time. Yeah, absolutely. Well, otherwise, taking an 8-hour bus trip, as you guys did, was really.
It was fun though. Road trip, we never get to do that.
You were real troopers, and it was a really great event. And Dr. Seiler loved it. I loved it, and so that week was revolving around orchestral activities, and the prior week of the residency was again around chamber music. So it's been a wonderful thing being able to interact with the students in the music department in various different capacities in various different venues, and looking forward to doing it again next year.
So you mentioned something about having diversity on the show, which obviously is going to enrich any musical program, but it's still fundamentally a classical show, right? How do you decide how much diversity to include in your programming?
Well, it's the repertoire all remains within the classical realm. So in terms of diversity, in terms of repertoire, it really is between modern and early. It's not really, we don't really branch out genre-wise. That was sort of the original concept, was to have all kinds of music on the program, but our classical music NPR constituency wanted a strictly classical program, which is actually what led me to do my Radiohead arrangements, because I thought this would be a nice opportunity to sort of slip things under the door and play my little solos at the midway point of the program, and So that was my way of sort of.
I was gonna say, I mean, in your performing career, you've sort of undertaken to be a classical voice for Radiohead and in the rock world. I mean, do you have any opportunity to have non-classical music on the show?
We get in from time to time. You know, we'll have a young pianist. We'll have a young jazz pianist on under the rubric of his being a composer.
Oh, okay.
We will have a young classical, like we had a young classical guitarist on the program whose father taught her how to play, you know, the Jimi Hendrix version of Purple Haze behind her neck, and so we can get away with things like that occasionally. Okay. And then, you know, and in talking with the kids and interviewing the kids, their interest in diverse types of music comes to the fore, and we'll you know, play clips of things that they're into or things that they've actually done on their own. We've had kids on the program who have gone on and had extraordinary diverse careers. Lauren Chipman, who appeared on the show many years ago as a violist. I ran into her in recent years. She's playing in orchestras in the LA area. She plays as the violist in the Section Quartet, who do, you know, Radiohead and lots of other things.
Very nice. Oh, right,
And she's now also the co-band leader and songwriter in the Rentals. Kevin Alusala appeared on the program as a classical saxophonist. Subsequent to that, he appeared when we played Brahms on the Today Show as a cellist.
No way.
And he's now beatboxing and holding up the bottom end of the Pentatonics, the a cappella group.
You know, the question of programming, I think it's such a major issue in the arts world because you have to find this balance of staying true to classical music, to not compromising on what classical music is and saying, you know, we're going to present ourselves as a classical music organization and bring, you know, great classical music to the masses. But I feel like we also have to show that we're willing to acknowledge other types of music as legitimate and equally important. And so what you do, you know, interpreting Radiohead and rock music as a classical pianist, I think is really important too.
I think so. I mean, you know, it used to be, you know, sort of acting out and being sort of naughty on the concert stage, but it really is a matter of acknowledging, as you say, that there's great music to be heard.
Can you tell us what's next on your plate as we all go off to our spring break beach trips or whatever?
Well, I wish I could say I was going to be enjoying spring break with y'all, but I'm behind deadline. I'm working up a piece for the San Francisco Girls Chorus. It'll be a medley of songs by Joni Mitchell, so I'll be playing with them and writing for them. Yeah, this Symphonie Fantastique has really been quite a project. I just finished a run of performances with the puppeteer Basil Twist, who did an entire proscenium-sized aquarium puppet ballet to the whole symphony.
Sorry, can you go over that one more time?
Yeah, it's like a big tank. It looks like a big screen TV. With 5 puppeteers in wetsuits behind the screen.
Underwater.
Well, they're manipulating things that are moving through the water, scarves and objects and things like that. And he's done this sort of hallucinatory show to Symphonie Fantastique. So we did 5 performances in 4 days. We did it 10 years ago. He used to be doing it with the Ormandy recording of the symphony, and I think this time around I was right under the tank with the piano, and so it actually appears as if these hallucinations are coming out of the piano, and so it's really sort of a more integral show.
That sounds pretty unconventional in a bunch of ways. So they put you and your concert Steinway under a huge tank of water.
Well, or sort of as you're looking at it, I'm here, I'm sitting, and there's the lid off the piano, and then to my left is this black wall, sort of with an opening, sort of a window where the tank is. And so then there's this huge scaffolding behind where there are 5 puppeteers in wetsuits doing all this manipulation.
Scaffolding, that's appropriate.
Isn't it?
To the piece.
Yes, exactly. March to the scaffolding.
And so there are there's a technological aspect to it too. I mean,
Yeah, there's great lighting, absolutely great lighting, and a little bit of film, some film that is actually shown and projected through the water so that it projects out onto the walls of the auditorium.
That sounds
pretty extraordinary.
Yeah, it sounds like it really appeals to all the senses.
Really
and
does.
it really makes me think of the things artists are doing in physical theater, which is sort of a new field incorporating all aspects of theater. There's live music, there's movement, of course, and acrobatics. That's what we do here in the theater department, which is really exciting, and just all aspects of performance. So, and you're going to be doing that after you leave us?
Well, just finished that run, and we're hoping to do a few more performances of that. So yeah, that was the really big thing on my plate.
Wow, sounds like fun.
Yeah, it was fun.
All right, well, thanks so much for joining us.
Thanks, Ruth. Always a pleasure.